Alrighty, welcome to Programming with C Sharp. If this was a in-class day, what I would do is I'd spend an hour talking about the syllabus and stuff like that. However, I've already got all that recorded, so what I'm going to ask you to do is, before you make any further progress on this video, go and do which was requested in the notices, which is to watch the introductory video. So what it does is it goes over the syllabus. It's actually for the last semester that I taught this, but the syllabus has not changed that much. I will review the syllabus from that one and this one and then post a notice if there are any material changes that you really need to be concerned about. Of course, you'll read the syllabus carefully on your own as well as watching the introductory video. So the way the class works is we will have lectures. Lectures are where I give you instructions or I demonstrate. Also call them tutorials. These are the things that I'm doing in lecture when I'm recording these. You're free to come and enjoy the lectures. We're doing them Monday and Wednesday at 3 o'clock in room 201. So along with the lecture tutorials, we will have the homework. So the lectures, you'll watch the videos and you'll read the documents if there are any, and you'll do the work there. The homework, you're on your own to do. Of course, you're free to ask for help. Some of the homework assignments refer back to previous lectures. Work that you did in, lecture C or whatever, then the homework assignment may be based on that, in which case you'll be kind of stuck if you haven't actually watched the lecture. So I am expecting you to watch the lectures. I'm also hoping that you'll work along with them, that you'll type along or drag the buttons along as I'm typing and dragging the buttons along. If you can possibly get that going, that'd be good. That way you're getting some practice into using the tools while you're watching the videos. Otherwise, you're just watching a video of somebody typing something on the screen and it's kind of boring. So I hope you get to play along. However, if for some reason you absolutely can't, I will upload a form called the lecture, review form. And if you can't turn in any work that you did from that lecture, if you were only able to watch it without following along, then you fill out that form and you upload it for that day and you get credit. And basically the form just says, what lecture was it? What day did you watch it? And what did you learn from it? Give me a couple sentences about that, just to prove that you actually watched it. Otherwise, you could just upload 20 of those forms, right? And, say that you watched all the lectures. That would be to your disadvantage anyways. Lectures are an important component of this. If you didn't want the lectures, you could just buy a textbook, right, and read it without even, paying to college. So, along with homework, we will have chapter quizzes. And we will have exams. The chapter quizzes, you get multiple attempts at. After I grade your quiz, if you aren't happy with your grade, if you miss some points, you'll go and you'll look at the feedback in them. You can see which questions you missed, and you can retake it to try to up your grade on it. Then the exams, no, you're not allowed multiple attempts on the exams. I had somebody ask that. They took the exam and then they said, well, when can I retake it? Like, why would you expect to be able to retake it? And then I realized it's because I was letting people retake the quizzes. But no, can't retake the exams. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do lectures. You're going to have homework assignments based on those. There'll be chapter quizzes and there'll be exams. Watch the introductory video, as you probably have by the point where you see this, and hopefully that all makes sense. So you're going to need Visual Studio. I've asked you to install it. The machines that we have on campus are running Visual Studio 2013. You're probably going to get 2017. Fortunately for you, there's not much difference between 2013 and 2017 as far as what we're going to be demonstrating. All the menus are going to be in the same place. Whatever you see me do on screen, you're pretty much going to be able to do in your 2017 version. So don't stress about that. I wish we would upgrade these to 2017. I'm not sure why we haven't. I guess because all these machines are old and running Windows, Windows 7. Maybe they're afraid it wouldn't handle it. Anyways, I know that that's not true because I've installed 2017 on my office computer and it's also running Windows 7. So when you come in, log into D2L and you click on assignments, what you're going to see is a tutorial folder, which right now only has one thing in it, and you're going to see a homework folder. Homework folder is going to have a bunch of stuff. Looks like right now the homework assignments aren't available for to access yet. It looks like some of them a lot of them are blocked off. Only one homework assignment is active at this point, which is install Visual Studio. We may change that and we may add things, but I'm going to pretty much just wind up opening all the homework so that you can work as fast as you want. But the caveat will be that if you're working ahead of the lectures, some of them do rely upon lecture material. I try not to do that too much. So let's take a look at the documentation for our first tutorial. So today we will enter, edit, and test a short program. It's a command line application. But we're also going to be doing a lot of graphical user interface programming in this class, more than in probably any of the other classes that we've taken at Rose, which is cool. C# was designed to be a good tool for graphical user interface development, whereas in C++, that's just basically a Godzilla, and if you try to add graphical user interface stuff to it, it's a big beast to get it to work. You have to choose which framework and whatever. Since Microsoft created this, and they created it to run on Windows, they integrated it all together in a way that's even not possible for Java to support as clean of an integration of creating a GUI. But baby steps. We're going to do a console app first, but we're going to be doing graphical user interfaces a lot more quickly than you might imagine. That's going to be one of the main thrusts of this, in my opinion. So we need to launch Visual Studio, and we need to create a new C# project. So launch Visual Studio, pause the recording if you gotta. And then when you get it open, we're going to do File, New. I said File, New Project. I don't want a Visual Basic program. I want a Visual C# application. I want a console app. You can see there's a lot of other ones. We're also going to be building WPF applications. And Windows Form applications are similar. They're both ways of creating graphical user interfaces, and you can use drag and drop. You drop a button on there, and then you can edit the behavior that the icon's going to do, that the button's going to do, and then you can put a text field on there. Anyways, we will see how that works. All right, so we've chosen console application. Let's give it a good name. I think this instruction just recommends a fairly boring name of CS_A. Feel like putting your name in it as well. That's pretty cool. Let's do that. Am I? Yeah, I am recording. Okay, good. Is the mic on? Yes, the mic is on. I'm paranoid about things like that. I'm turning it up, so I'm going to blow your ears if you're already listening. There you go. Choosing console app, I'm going to call this CSA for C# Tutorial A. Click OK. And what do you know? Access is denied. Okay, I'm going to have to browse and create a new project folder. You probably won't have to do this at home. Okay, so CSA. I'm going to get another room in for us to do these lectures so that I don't have to do this each time. Browse. I'm just going to pick something on my desktop. New folder. C#. Select folder. Okay, you saw what I did. I just chose browse. I chose another home directory. And now my project name is again going to be CS_A. Still going to be a console app. Let's try that once more with feeling. Here we go. And it has created a project. What is a project? It's actually a folder and a collection of files. Our programming file is the one that ends in .cs. But Visual Studio creates a whole bunch of other files as well. And we're not going to talk about them much. I'm just going to go and pop open Windows Explorer. Go find my directory that I just made, just so I can show you. So here's my C# folder. My project was called CSA, so that's my project folder. There's a solutions file. Old solution files can be converted into later versions. So if I send you an SLN file, for 2012, 2013, you'll be able to open it in 2017. On the other hand, if you send me one created in 2017 and I try to open it in 2012, I'm not going to be able to do that. They're not backwards compatible. But that's not a real problem because, like I said, I've actually installed the newest version of it, just like y'all have. Just be aware. If you were going to take something to a campus computer and expect to be able to open it, you probably would not be able to open the solution file directly. There are ways around that. Let's go ahead and look in the project folder. We will see that there's the CS file, .cs, standing for C#, but then there's some other folders here. Bin stands for binary. When we actually make our program, there's going to be an executable file. It'll be stored in the debug directory because we're compiling for debug mode. When we want to compile for release mode, there'll be another executable binary folder. I'm going to blip back out. There's an object. Well, for right now we don't have anything, right? But you can see that when we created that folder, it created a whole bunch of files to go with it. When you turn in a solution, what I would like for you to do is to go ahead and zip up the entire project folder. How do you do that? Well, you go into your projects, right, and then you choose the folder. You right click and do send to compressed zipped folder, like that. When you do that, you'll get a zip file, and that'll be what I want you to submit. Now, it'd also be awesome and neat if you also gave me the CS file separately so that I could open that without opening the entire project, but it's no big deal. That's absolutely what I want, is the project with the zip. If you only gave me the CS file, that's okay too most of the time. However, later on when we're drawing graphical user interface applications, it's going to be more than that. So give me the entire project zipped up. Say you don't know where your project folder is. You can't find it. Well, what you can do is you go, now I'm back in Visual Studio, right? If you can't see the Solution Explorer thing over to the right, you do View, Solution Explorer. So if that had been closed for some reason, give yourself room to type or something. I'm not sure why I'm closing absolutely everything. It's probably going to bug me later. But View, Solution Explorer. The Solution Explorer is where you see your files and the hierarchy of files. As you add more files, they'll be listed over here. And it's something called properties. But when you want to find your source files, what you're going to do is where it says Solution and it has the name of the project, right click on it and do Open Folder in File Explorer. Then it'll take you here, right? And you can zip it up pretty easily. When you look at it, we're already one step inside the project. So what I would like for you to do is to step out one level, and you know how to do that in Windows, I bet. In this case, I'm going to just click on that. That gets me out one level so that I'm looking at that. I'm going to delete the CS file, the zip file that I made. Right? Where's move to trash? All right, delete. Okay. Anyways, I'll do that again and I'll show you the difference why I was making an issue of that. Open folder in File Explorer. We're inside the project folder. We're inside that thing that says CS_A. And this would probably say Visual Studio Projects or something like that if I hadn't created my own folder. You just want to go back up a level before you zip it up, before you right click and do send to compressed zip folder. So when we created our file, it went ahead and created the boilerplate. When you took C#, you probably had to fill in all the boilerplate yourself. You may have created a boilerplate file. This is adding a whole bunch of stuff just by default that they're assuming that we might want to use. Well, I know for a fact that in the early days, we're not going to be using .link and .text and .threading tasks. We could safely delete those. Doesn't matter. I could leave them. I could take them or leave them. I'm going to delete those. Probably not going to even need systems collections generic. I'm doing a lot of changes without looking at the documentation for what we ought to be doing. So this says program right here. You can right-click on your project. No, I'm not seeing what I'm trying to do here. Yeah, let's go on with the actual lecture rather than be more babbling. Okay. So this says let's customize Visual Studio a bit. We want to make a few changes to the Visual Studio environment. We're going to add the build toolbar. We're going to click on an empty part of the toolbar, right click on it, and make sure that build has a checkbox on it. And we're going to do the same thing for debug. We can disable and re-enable them a few times to make sure that we know where they are, and then we're going to drag them to a convenient spot. So up here, I need the build toolbar. It's not selected right now. And you see that when I clicked it, it added it there. It removed it there. It added it there. And I'm going to drag that. I'm going to find a little handle. You can't see it on the video, I bet, but the handle's right there. And I'm going to pull that and pull it underneath the other toolbars. That's my build bar. And also a debug bar. I want the debug bar as well. So I'm going to choose debug. Alright, so now I have all my tools for building and for debugging it. I can always just click the start menu as well. The start button as well. And of course you can rebuild using the rebuild menu. And honestly, that's probably really what I do. But when I wrote the instructions, it felt important for me to include those. Now, so what my comment was, this lets you build and debug the project with buttons in the toolbar. Some like this, some people don't. If later you decide you don't, you can always remove them. Line numbers. I like seeing line numbers. We can enable line numbers. We're going to go to the Tools menu and select Options. And then we're going to choose Text Editor, General, All Languages. So let's do that. Tools, Options, Text Editor. Tools, Options, General, not Environment, Text Editor. Now Text Editor / General / All Languages. Okay, so I'm in Text Editor, General, All Languages. Show line numbers, please. And while we're gawking at that, let's go ahead and pop that back open. Tools, Options, choose the C# one, and let's just see what options are available. General. Okay. If I wanted to change the fact that C# doesn't have line numbers while everything else does, I could disable them. Scroll bars. Do I want a vertical and a horizontal scroll bar? Tabs. Yeah, whatever. I'm going to leave this all alone. The interesting one might be formatting. You could change how you want your open and close braces to be indented, for example. And do you want braces to automatically be on the same line as the code above it or on the next line, that kind of thing. I'm not going to play with any of these settings. I just wanted to nudge you to go look. And my comment, if you don't find the options there, Google Visual Studio 2017 line numbers, and you'll certainly find out how to find it. And then make sure Solution Explorer is visible. I've already done that. I went up to View, Solution Explorer. So we're going to modify the project to pass some command line arguments to the program. I'd kind of forgotten that I had the program do this. What are command line arguments? Command line arguments are like if you're running the command prompt, which you can do just by hitting Windows R and typing in CMD. If you type something, right, you're running a program. dir is actually a program, but it supports options. Like if I want to sort things in order of their date, I can type dir/od. That means order by date. And now everything that is listing is shown by date. Or if I only want to see directories rather than files, which is all that there are in that directory anyways. Let me go out somewhere so that might have an effect. I can do dir/ad. Show me only directories. Attribute directories is what the AD means. Okay. So on. You can also look for hidden files and stuff like that. Those are command line arguments. Since we are writing a console application, it is something that could be run from the command line, and it could accept a command line argument. But it's kind of hard to run a program from within the editor and give it command lines, right? Because there's nothing that we're typing when we're seeing this right here, right? But we can configure the project so that we can pass in a command line argument to it. Let's see how to do that. Right-click on CSA in the Solution Explorer and choose Properties, and then choose the Debug tab. So CSA, confusing myself. Choose Properties. There's also a Properties folder underneath it, and I got momentarily distracted, but I actually got to it by choosing right-click on the project name and choosing Properties there. Now there's a whole bunch of different tabs here. A whole bunch of stuff that we're probably not going to know about even after we're done with this class. But the Debug tab, Start Options, Command Line Arguments. Remember when I typed in dir/od? Well, if I wanted to enter /od into my code, that's where I would do that, like that. And then every time the debugger runs it, it would pass that command line argument, just as though it were run from the command line. And that's not the one that the document says. So add a line of command line arguments shown as below, such as Jar Jar Binks is the best Star Wars character. Yeah, we don't have to type that exact same thing. I love Harry Potter, but I love Twilight even more. All right, something like that. And if you're familiar with the idea of Windows shortcuts, you know, creating links to run applications, you're familiar with the idea of setting a working directory. We don't care. We're going to leave that alone. So it's time to start editing the program. We're going to double click on program.cs in the Solution Explorer pane. Probably don't already have to do that. It was, well, yeah, we do, because this is all open, right? It's in our way. So where it says program.cs, I'm going to double click on that. Yay, we have our line numbers, and you can expand and hide sections of code based on their braces. If I do that, it hides everything. If I hide this, it hides everything inside the class. Well, what's a class? Well, I hope you've taken Java or C++, but this is going to be a really good introduction to the idea of classes if you have not, because absolutely everything in this language is a class. If you've done procedural programming as Python, there's no such thing as pure procedural programming in C#. You have to put everything inside a class. Specifically, we're going to make a program class, and every program class is going to have a main method. That main method is what is executed when you launch the application. It's the system's hook into it to tell it where to start running. And if you've taken C++, then you're used to seeing the main method. The main. However, it didn't have that word static in front of it, and it didn't have anything, you know, probably just said int main parentheses in parentheses. If you've taken Java, then this looks a lot more familiar. Java and C# are kind of like fraternal twins, not identical twins, but they're very similar to each other. Notice that main is capitalized, unlike the way it was in Java or C++. Here, what we're saying is that when main is launched, we're going to pass in an array of strings. If you're used to the idea of an array, then you're pretty well off there. It's a list, a Python list. We will be able to step through the command line arguments and print them out or something like that. That's why they're being passed in. So we should not have to type on all of this stuff. It should already be there, provided by Visual Studio when we made the project. You can just call it boilerplate. Remove all the lines except using system. So here we go. I'm going to leave that line number 1, but I'm going to take out all the rest of the using lines. I'd already wandered off in that direction before. Looks like I've done that. And it'd also be cool if you put your name, right? Go ahead and add your name and the date just for funsies. So now we're ready to enter our own code as shown on the next page. Here's where we're going to add. Now, if this doesn't all make absolute sense at this point, that's okay, right? We're just getting a program up and running. And then you're going to read the textbook and you're going to follow along with it, and this stuff will all sink in. But what is this program going to do? Well, you may be used to the print function in Python, or system.out, in Java, or cout arrow in C++. Well, this is how we display output on this to the console in C#. We use the console class, console.writeLine. This is the same thing as, println, system.out.println in Java. What this curly brace 0 means is that this is a placeholder that will be filled in with the value of variable n. What is n? N is equal to the length of this list of arguments, this array of arguments. So if we had not added any command line arguments, then n would be 0. And when it runs, it's going to print out number of parameters is equal to 0. However, I did put some. I put something about Harry Potter and Twilight or whatever. So the number of parameters is not going to be 0. It's going to be set, whatever. And then after that, we're going to have a for loop. The for loop is going to step through and print out every command line argument. The first one is element 0, the second one is element 1, the third one is element 2. Hopefully you have had the idea of lists or arrays in prior classes. That's what this is doing. It's stepping through them, printing out each one. Now this WriteLine had 2 placeholders. Curly brace 0 and curly brace 1. Zero is going to be filled in with the word parameters, and 1 is going to be filled in with that particular element of the array. I'm not quite sure why I set it up like that. Well, we'll play with it. Alrighty, can I possibly get all this stuff on the screen at the same time? Sure I can. All right, so especially if I shrink that down, int n is an integer, equals to args.length. So args is the parameter that's defined as part of the main method. And we're going to write that out. Console.writeLine. It's popping up in IntelliSense so that we can pick things from it to try to save some typing period. And it does try to make some corrections to our typing if we mess things up. Just try to save us from ourselves a little bit. Quote, parentheses, quote, number of parameters equals, and in curly brace 0 in curly brace. And then the closing quote, and then comma, and then n. Closing parentheses, semicolon. Like that. So these are our first 2 lines. And you have these instructions available to you right in the folder, so I'm not going to stress about that. Let's go look at the next line, which is the for loop. For int I equals 0, I less than n, I plus plus. Alrighty. For int I equals 0, I is less than n, I plus plus. I hit enter after the close parentheses, doing an opening brace, a closing brace. Now I'm going to do another console.writeLine. Console.writeLine, parentheses, quote. Now I'm going to add 1 placeholder. Let me review, make sure, absolutely sure I've got it memorized. Placeholder equals placeholder. Okay. So inside the quotes, curly brace 0 in curly brace, space equal sign, space, curly brace 1 in curly brace, end quote, comma, parameters inside quotes, comma, followed by, oh, I skipped a line. I didn't follow my instructions exactly. I apologize for that. We're going to put something above it, which says string s is equal to args subscript I. So go above your console write line and do that. String s equals args subscript I. Retrieve that element from the args array. When I say subscript, I mean enclose it in square braces. String s is equal to args square brace I in square brace. All right, so now console write line. Placeholder equals placeholder, end quote, comma, parameters, end quote, comma, s. Well, that ought to be enough. So I'm going to run it. I could build it with these icons over here, build CSA or build solution. I'm just going to build it before I run it, just because I like to see this message down here, build succeeded. Now I'm going to run it, green arrow, start. Although since I enabled the debug menu, there ought to be some debug options for getting it to go, but I don't see those, so I'm just going to run it like this. Alrighty, and it ran and it closed the window before we got to see the output. Let's see if the instructions remind us how to fix that. Okay, so what's happening is that it's closing the window as soon as it terminates. Now we could go and search through the debug options and we could find a way to prevent it from doing that. But if you use C++, you remember that little hack that we did of always adding system pause? Well, we're going to add a read line call to the bottom of our code that'll prevent it from closing as soon as it's finished running. So if console.writeLine writes stuff to the screen, then console.readLine reads from the keyboard. Now I'm going to build it again. There's so many different ways you can build. Build solution from the build menu. All right. Start. I'm going to click the green start arrow, or I could choose debug, start debugging, or if I don't think I'm going to use the interactive debugger, I could use start without debugging. All of the same. All of those work. And there we go. I'm going to expand this window a little bit, make it a little bit larger. And there's our output. My message was, I love Harry Potter, but I love Twilight even more. Why are there two parameters? Or, excuse me, why are there two words on that line? Let's go and look how I defined my command line arguments, and we will see why. I close my visual, my Solution Explorer, I need to go back. I'm going to right click on the CSA, the project name, choose properties. See what this says? I love Harry Potter, but I love Twilight even more. Well, the printing is awfully tiny on your screen, but there's quotes around the word Harry Potter. So those were fed in as one command line. I'm going to copy that and paste it into the code editor so that you can see. Here's what I passed in. I'm just going to add it as a comment. You don't have to do this, right? Here's what I passed in. I love Harry Potter, but I love Twilight even. It's treating everything inside the quotes as one. So, what did n equal? Even without running it, I ought to be able to figure it out. Using zero-based indexing. 0, no, that'll be, yeah, 0, 1, 2, that's all 1. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's probably going to say that there's 9 parameters. And that those parameters are elements 0 through 8. Run it again and see if that supposition is true. There we go. 9 parameters and it printed them out. Okay, this little business here where there were build errors. Would you like to continue and run the last successful build? No. All right, so apparently I broke something. What did I do wrong? Oh, when I tried to run it, I had not closed a previously running instance of it, and so it could not regenerate it. And that's why it didn't run. So I need to close the window before I rerun it each time. good way to verify that you've done that is to rebuild it each time. All right, now run it. I didn't change the behavior of it. Unfortunately, it changed my font size back to small. I guess I'm just going to live with that. I thought I would maintain it between runs. Okay, so this business here, this is being filled in with the word parameters. And this is being filled in with the specific parameter. I think that's dumb. I don't know why I did it like that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete the word parameters from there. And I'm going to delete this first placeholder. No, I'm going to leave the first placeholder and delete all the rest of it. So right now it just says curly brace 0 in curly brace. But I may as well put some descriptive text. How about parameter equals, like that. Not parameter, parameter. All right, it runs. That looks pretty good. I love Harry Potter, but I love Twilight more. Yeah, it's still running. But maybe I want to have a second placeholder just for printing out the number of the parameter, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I wanted to do that, why don't I do a subscript, curly brace 0 there, change this back to curly brace 1. But as well as, as well as printing the string, I'm going to print out our counter value, I, comma S. Then I'm going to run it. And so it says parameter 0 is equal to I, parameter 1 is equal to love, parameter 2 is equal to Harry Potter, and so on. Oddly enough, these don't have to be in the same order as these. What happens if I change this to a 1 and this placeholder to a 0? Well, it prints them out in the opposite order. Parameter I is equal to 0, parameter love is equal to 1, parameter Harry Potter is equal to 2. What if you made them both 1s? Now this is absurd. But what it's going to do is it's going to just print out that variable inside both spots. Now if I is placeholder 0, we're not going to see the number appear at all, but we're going to see the string appear twice because I made them both 1s. There. I equals I, love is equal to love, Harry Potter equals Harry Potter. Or if I make them both 0, I'm just going to see the number equals number. 0 equals 0, 1 equals 1, 2 equals 2, and so on. All right. And that's all very silly, so I'm going to change it back to being placeholder 0 equals placeholder 1. Doing good? Yeah. All right. So I believe this is almost the exact same code that is shown in the document, but I did make a change. I made a slight change to that line. If you don't have that going on, if you just take and do exactly what's in the document as well, that's all right. Let's see what else was in the document. All right, let's add an error just so that we get a chance to fix something. All right, what if I forgot that for statements require semicolons everywhere? I'm going to change that semicolon to a comma and that semicolon to a comma. It is no longer a good program. So I'm going to rebuild it. Project, build solution, and I get some errors. Well, fortunately, this time they're pretty clear. Sometimes the error messages are pretty cryptic, but it says that here, if I double click on it, it'll take me right to the spot. And it says semicolon expected. Now, it didn't highlight the correct thing to change, right? But we know that the problem is located somewhere around there, and that it has to do with a missing semicolon. So, okay, yeah, that should have been a semicolon there. And that should have been a semicolon. What if I had removed the semicolon here? What if I forgot to type that? Well, then when I build it again, or even as soon as I save it, which you can't see me do on the screen because I'm hitting Control-S to save it, it says that there's an error there. It says semicolon expected, and that time it does take me to the exact location of the problem. What if I'd forgotten a quote? I forgot that closing, that terminating quote. Well, it highlights the whole thing. It says new line and constant. Hopefully you can look at this and go, oh yeah, it needed a quote in there. So at this point we're done. Get the files ready to submit to the Dropbox. I'm not satisfied with us being done at this point. There's one more thing that I want to do, which is to set a breakpoint and to run to that breakpoint and step through it by hand. So I hope that this makes sense, what I'm about to do. What a breakpoint is it tells the debugger to stop on that particular line. You know, right now whenever we start the debugger, it just runs the program from beginning to end. But what if we wanted to stop at a certain line? Like we wanted it to stop after it printed number of parameters, but before the for loop. Well, I would set a breakpoint here. What I did is I clicked in the gray margin in front of the 14, and that is where the program is going to stop when I run it. So now when I run it, it did exactly what I told it to do, which is, although it hid the window behind the screen, if I go back to it, I'll see that it printed out the word number of parameters. And then it stopped there. What if I want to keep running? What if I want to go through another line? Well, there's these little symbols up here. There's a stop, but then there's some arrows as well. And these are going to look different, a bit different on your Visual Studio than they do on this one. And I kind of wish that this one was tucked down here on its own line. And I'm wondering what that is. That the debug location? No. That is the debug menu. I managed to confuse myself. Anyways, okay, so we have the debug toolbar. One of these says show next statement. One says step into, and one says step over. Step into would be if you're sitting on top of a method call, a function call. We don't want to do that, so I'm going to use step over. It's that one. Or it's under the debug menu as step over. And there's a function key, but if I press that particular function key, it's going to stop my recording, so I'm not going to do that. Anyways, find the one by hovering that says step over, and we'll see, okay, I did it again, and it's showing me that I is currently equal to 0. I can come down here and I can see my variables. I'm sorry that the print is so small, but it's saying that I is equal to 0 and n is equal to 9. That's true. When we printed it out, the number of arguments was 9. So I'm going to keep clicking step over. It highlighted that line as it extracts that argument from the argument array and stores it in the variable s. I'm going to step over again. All right, now it's just about ready to write it. If I hover my cursor over S, I'll see what that argument was. It's the word I, because the text was I love Harry Potter. So I'm going to click step over again. It actually executes the write line statement. I can validate that by actually going and looking at the executable, by clicking on that. All right, so it has printed out parameter 0. Now it's sitting at the close brace. So if I do step over, it's going to jump back up to the top of the for loop again, because that's the next thing it's going to do. So step over, we're back at the for loop again. If I do step over again, and again, and now we're entering the curly braces again, and so I'm going to stop talking and I'm just going to start clicking the step over button, and you can watch it go. Just like you're going to be doing. You see where it executes each thing in turn. And when you're finally tired of debugging, you can click the stop debugging symbol. Debugging is an incredibly useful skill, and it's something that we should hammer a lot in more than we do. You ought to play with using the debugger a lot, and I will try to remember to force us to do debugging in these lectures, but you also need to be using them on your own time. And now I think we are done. Anything else left in here? Take a screenshot. Okay, I would like for you to zip the project and give me a screenshot of the program running. Well, I forgot to do that, so I'm going to run it. To take a screenshot, I'll post the instructions for screenshots if it's not already there, but I'll tell you right now. You hit the print screen button to get everything, or you press Alt Print Screen, followed by a window click if you only want to get that window. Now right now this is filling my entire window, so I'm just going to hit the print screen button on my keyboard, which you can't see me do. Click. And then I need to paste it into a document so I can upload it. I'm just going to load up Paint and paste it. You can load up Word, you can load up whatever you want. Just bring something up and then paste and do a file save as. Doesn't really matter where I'm saving this stuff because on this computer everything gets deleted as soon as I turn it off anyways. So anyways, Lecture A screenshot followed by my name. I probably give a different format. CS_A. Alright, I can do that. CS_A screenshot. And I'm going to put my name there just to personalize it. Okay, so now I've got a screenshot that I'm going to upload, and I'm also going to make a zip. So you're going to go to your Visual Studio Projects folder. I had to move mine, but yours will be in a place like C, Users, Ringo, Documents, Visual Studio 2017 Projects, right? If you can't find the Visual Studio Projects quickly, like I said, the fastest way to do so is to use the Solution Explorer, right-click on the project and choose Open Folder in File Explorer. And then go up a level or two so that we can actually select the project folder. Now I'm actually going to close Visual Studio before I do all this to make sure that it's flushed everything out. Do you want to stop debugging? Yes. That way everything is saved to the disk and I am ready to create my zip file. So I right click on the folder, I do send to compress folder. If you have other zip utilities you like using like 7-zip or WinRAR or whatever, it's all good. So I'm going to upload the zip file and I'm going to upload my screenshot into the Dropbox. So I'm going to click on Assignments. I'm going to find that particular Dropbox. Click Add a File. My computer, upload. I'm just going to use drag and drop. But you know how to do this stuff. Drag and drop those bad boys in here. Then I'm going to click Add and then Submit. And so now we are done. Your only homework assignment, well, you have two little bits of things you need to do. One is you're going to install Visual Studio. And you're going to put a note saying that you did. Take a screenshot, paste it into a Word doc or a Paint doc or whatever. Or you can just write a text file that says, I installed Visual Studio. And I'm really sorry for the Mac users that the Macintosh version of Visual Studio is so crippled. Feel free to try it, but you're going to wind up finding a Windows machine and installing it. The other thing that I want you to do is to go to Quizzes and take Quiz 0. Quiz 0 just proves that you're involved in a class. Let me preview it so I can show you what it looks like. It's not going to be a mystery. Ooh, I'm in student mode, so I can't preview it, and I can't take it. I don't know why D2L will not let me take my own quizzes. But, alright, go to Quizzes. Click on Quiz 0. Take the quiz. What does it look like? Here's what it looks like. Alrighty, I am enrolled in participating in this class. True. Second question. Text communication is an excellent way to communicate and get help in this class. For example, if you're stuck on a problem, you can take a picture of your screen and text it to me. And if you've had my classes before, you already know this drill, right? Hopefully you've taken advantage of it. You know, I stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. every morning, so, you know, if you're working late at night, you get stuck on something, take a picture of the code, text it to me, I'll help you. And if you give me your phone number in this fashion, then if there are any strange announcements, it's not like I'm going to have to tell you that school is closed or something like that for an online class, but it's really useful for us to be able to communicate. So if you would do so, please send me your name followed by CIT1713, and there's my phone number. It'd be awesome if you did that. Even if you are taking me in another class and have already done this for that class, please do so for this one as well, because I create contact lists, right? So I can text out all my C# users and all my Java users and so on. It's not mandatory. I will never use the number for non-class correspondence. I will delete it from my contacts at the end of the system. That should be semester. The ending of the system sounds scary. I need to edit that to say semester. All right, answer true to this question whether you decide to do that or not. Okay, and then you're going to save all responses and submit it. And you actually get 20 points worth of quiz credit just for doing that. So those are your homework assignments. We'll have another one after the next lecture. So I hope this is clear. Text or call if you have any questions. And I will see you soon.